Extraction 2 or Extract 2 on, as they went for in the opening credits. It doesn't work. I appreciate them trying, but it really doesn't work when you try to say it out loud. The sequel to Extraction came out last week on Netflix, which was a great early pandemic distraction fodder, notable for its kind of lengthy, intense, one-shot continuous action sequences that made it one of the best action movies in recent years. At the time, I believe it was also Netflix's most watched ever movie in its first weekend, which again, part of that plays into the fact that it was released right at the time where none of us could move, and it was a semi-decent new movie released on a streamer. But again, part of it deserves it. It was actually quite a good movie. And what made it so refreshing was that it had a real no-frills approach. It knew exactly what it was good at and then just did that. They just gave it to you. There was minimal character beats. There was maximum class fights where the camera puts you smack bang in the middle of the blistering action. The sequel here starts slower as Chris Hemsworth, who returns as the lead character, recovers from the events of the last movie and gets a taste of retirement. Fans of the genre and just general users of logical reasoning will know you don't need me to tell you how that retirement works out, because it would be really weird if Extraction 2 was a movie about Hemsworth playing pitch and putt and learning how to garden. Hemsworth, for me, is probably the best actor alive for these type of roles. He makes The Rock look like a melodramatic wax figurine by comparison. The goes up nature of the movie meant that Hemsworth elected to go full badass on this, and he works the entire movie without a stunt double, which is safe to say he's more than able to cope with the physicality. And what that gives to this movie is just constant credibility, because again, we're right on top of Hemsworth there. There's no way you could get a wax double in, or a wax double. I'm thinking of wax figures now after that last quote. But there's no way that you can get a stunt double in to replace him as well. So it just feels like a real fight because we see him there right in front of us. But he's also really, while being credible, he's also really charismatic as well, but not in the kind of obvious action hero way, the traditional way where he's kind of like doing something cool and then rattling off a quote, which wouldn't work in this movie because the thing with this movie is credibility. But again, it's the right amount of charismatic here without having those kind of quipping hero tropes that a lot of movies rely on. There's a delightfully fun reunion with an old pal who's kind of gone on a similar career path of being in the Thor movies. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but again, you could probably guess it. They've gone from the Thor movies and they're now a Netflix cash cow, just like Hemsworth. And that kind of, they give Hemsworth one more job, and that kind of sets into motion this film's plot. The task this time is to infiltrate a Georgian prison and extract a family in prison there as a favor to crime lord David Radiani, who runs $1 billion heroin empire with his brother when he's not feuding with the other leading crime gang. And if you're thinking to yourself, having not seen this, did you just say it's Extraction but in a prison break? Then yes, you are correct. And if that appeals to you, then that part in particular is exactly as good as it sounds. Prison Break settings work extremely well for the continuous one-shot camera work that they go for in this movie. It's not a new concept by any means, but it's become really popular with since the likes of True Detective have done it in their show. And again, where it's popular and what this film understands is that it's popular with that feeling of claustrophobia, being right on top of the action, being in there and feeling like you're doing it. The constant motion of the camera work leads us for persistently feeling off balance. At times, it feels kind of like a video game where you only see what's coming in the middle of an action sequence. You see what's coming just as you need to deal with it, and you have to click the button at the right time. Or also a theme park ride where also you just have to submit to it because you're overloaded sensually, and at other times it just obfuscates the danger so you don't see what's coming until it's already happened. So again, you're just like and constantly looking around but constantly engaged in the sequence. And when you're in the thick of that, it's an incredible feeling. And the first hour between the prison break, which bleeds into a thrilling sequence involving a moving train and a helicopter that was actually filmed using a real movie train and a helicopter. It wasn't a green screen. Watch it again. It's absolutely incredible. It's one of the most exciting hours of movie action you're probably ever going to see. And it's one of these things where it's like, get a big fuck off telly, whack up the volume, put it on the highest HD resolution you can, watch it in 4K if possible, because it is magnificent. The risk on the flip side of that is that the excitement of a video game or a thrill ride is based around the fact that you're in it. You either have to do something in a game with the danger presented, or if you're in a theme park ride, you're just confronted with the idea that you can do nothing and have to submit to the fact that this is taking you whatever direction you want. But you are very much engaged, and there's a sense of peril there. Without that sense of peril, it's difficult not to disengage somewhat and let the action kind of wash over you. And after the opening sequence ends, that's a bit of the case for what happens, because then they start to kind of take a beat and start to introduce a plot and some stakes and start to have a bit of drama here. And I get why they did this. If I was to kind of guess, I take an educated guess, I'd say they're like, right, we need to give the audience a moment to breathe. But once you do that, once you take your foot off the gas, it's just really tough to get back to that level. And that's not to say that Extraction 2 is bad, and it doesn't fail by any means. It just maybe peaks too early is the way I put it. The first hour is as spectacular as you'll get in any action movie ever. It doesn't faff about with Hemsworth trying to recuperate or setting up our antagonists. They just give us enough stakes and enough information to buy in for what we need to understand for what's about to happen, and then just hit us with both barrels of what this franchise does best. But don't give me that time to breathe afterwards. Like, if you look at another Netflix success story of recent years, or the kind of Indian movie that kind of won an Oscar there last year, that went 3 hours and it just went from one batshit sequence to the next. You don't need to give me time to think about things, because if you do, then what I start to think about is, wait, that doesn't make sense. I don't like that character. I actually wish they died. I'm like, and then I'm just disengaging with everything and I'm not actually focusing. But giving me that time to breathe gives me time to actually go, Jesus Christ, that was a thrill ride. And then I'm just relaxing and easing into it. And then it's hard, like I said, to get back up to that peak that you brought me to. And the film, as a result, ended with me, as an audience member, feeling as exhausted as Chris Hemsworth must have felt after the train sequence. I just wanted a nap, to be honest. And I felt the drama they were trying to sell me on wasn't really enough to wake me up. Plus, the action they were giving me just couldn't keep up with what they'd introduced at the start of it. Having said that, though, the first hour of Extraction, like I said, as good as any action movie you're going to watch. So check out Extraction 2, but just know that once that sequence ends, the film effectively does too. Having said that, more than enough for Extraction 3. Just take the notes from this and improve. And again, the main note is just keep going. I will take 2-3 hours of this. It is excellent when it's at its peak.